Hey everybody, we are back with another video. And if you see a little Whoville haircut popping up, it's because, like any good mad scientist, I have a small animal with me at all times that refuses to leave my side. And today I want to talk about something that, probably comes as a surprise even to most scientists. Many living organisms can sense or detect the Earth's magnetic field. And it's not through senses and it's not through iron deposits, but it's actually because of quantum fluctuations. There's quantum effects taking place inside proteins, and in this case, these particular proteins are called cryptochromes. They operate using electron spin states, and these quantum states are difficult to maintain even under the most extreme conditions. And yet, life uses them routinely inside our warm, wet cells. It turns out life doesn't just survive a quantum world, but it seems like it's actually designed to make use of it. I'm Andrew. If you haven't seen my stuff yet, I'm a biochemist talking about creationism. And if you want to learn more about cryptochromes, there's a great video I suggest by Nature called How Quantum Mechanics Helps Birds Find Their Way. Check that out after this one. And, it's tough being in my position because in this day and age, a lot of people talk science, but they can't do the math. And furthermore, a lot of scientists, never move or transition beyond books and theories and research papers into real bench work. That being said, at the end of the day, you'll hear many different arguments for or against some of the things I'm saying, and they'll be coming from both sides of the aisle. So I want to be very clear. I'm not a debater. I'm not here to refute every argument, and I don't think I have all of the information. I simply want to share some of my most incredible observations from my time in academia, working with real data, real models, and real biological systems, and hopefully introduce you to some of these concepts, if nothing else. And, it's funny to me because some scientists abhor creationism and some believers don't like science. But like I said in the last cosmology video, Scripture tells us to seek understanding. I applied my heart to know the wisdom. Ecclesiastes 7:25. So truly, I don't believe that science and Christianity are at odds with each other. And I've actually been able to fill a lot of gaps about questions I had by reviewing the research through a biblical lens. And it's funny because we learn early on at university that the universe is trending towards chaos. But the deeper I looked, that's not what I found. It wasn't chaos. It was order. Let's start off with a topic I love, which is protein diversity within the human body. So we know that your genes are encoded to create thousands of different types of proteins. In fact, you have 30 to 40 trillion cells in your body. And the typical human cell contains between 2 and 3 billion base pairs of DNA. Of those, 20,000 are protein encoding genes. Pretty impressive already. But because of things like alternative splicing, chemical modification, and folding, these instructions actually produce hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of different types of protein within your body. And most of them are all functional. What's crazy is that their function depends on very precise shapes. So a good way of thinking about it is that it's not just information, but it's information that's expressed through matter. One of the craziest parts to me is that experimental work shows that functional proteins should only represent a tiny probability of what's actually possible. So out of all amino acid combinations, conservative estimates place functional sequences at less than 1 in 10 to the 60. If you ask me, that's not just chemistry. That's selective function emerging from a vast possibility space. And after all, Psalm 139:14 says, I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And that verse just hits differently when you really think about how much has to go right at the molecular level every single second. Another one I like is Job 38:36. Who has put wisdom in the inward parts? A fun one that hit me while I was still in college too was diffusion and incarnation and how they seem to be related. So to explain that, I'll just say that water molecules move incredibly fast. Diffusion, they switch places and spread out, right? They go through clouds, rivers, oceans, and of course, living cells. And there's a statement that I heard more than once from professors during my education, and that's that water diffuses so rapidly through Earth's systems that it's statistically likely every human alive has interacted with water molecules that once passed through Jesus. To me, that makes incarnation physical in a way that's almost uncomfortable. After all, Jesus did say he was living water. So whether or not that analogy is literally true, I think there's an unavoidable amount of symbolism there. To me, this says God didn't just redeem creation from a distance, but he also entered it physically. And I want to get into some questions that I really carried with me for years. And, I don't think these are arguments or accusations, but really just questions that anybody might have. For starters, we often point to speciation, that's change within kinds, as evidence for long-term scaled evolution. But all we've ever observed is variation within boundaries. That is to say, even organisms with rapid generation times, like bacteria, they improve, they adapt, they diversify, but they always remain bacteria. To me, it raises questions about how far these extrapolations can go. And even when we look back at the fossil record, we don't see these gradual changes like some people claim. What we do see is new body plans with immensely advanced functions appearing suddenly. To be clear, I believe in the flood when it comes to geological findings. But if we just glance at what's known as the Cambrian explosion, the evolutionary model doesn't hold up very well. And it leads to us having to make some wild assumptions just to preserve the model. Next, let's talk about predictive limits. Our best computer models for evolution and selection are actually extremely limited. Every year, we struggle to predict the flu mutations, even with our massive data sets and generally small time frames of mutations. To me, this definitely suggests that biology is a lot more constrained and likely complex than our models suggest. In short, if prediction over a few months is so difficult, then prediction over millions of years calls for a lot of humility. And let's throw it back to last week, because fine-tuning doesn't just happen at the cosmic level. If we're looking at cells, enzymes require exact shapes. Binding affinities must fall within very narrow ranges, and reaction rates must be balanced precisely. Much like Earth, all of life actually exists in a chemical Goldilocks zone. Another interesting thing to me is that technically, mathematically, life doesn't violate entropy, but it does seem like it was designed to resist it. When we look at things like DNA repair, protein turnover, autophagy, and other error correction systems, it becomes obvious that life assumes decay will happen. But it has systems in place to restore order. I love 2 Corinthians 4:16, which states, "Though outwardly we are wasting away, inwardly we are being renewed day by day." And of course, none of these arguments alone prove the existence of God. But together, I think they show some pretty strong intention. And lastly, I want to end on chirality, because life as we know it requires left-handed amino acids, but right-handed sugars. And what's craziest about this to me is that chemistry doesn't prefer that in and of itself. And in fact, random processes create racemic mixtures, which would have molecules of both chirality involved. But life demands order in this place, and orientation matters. To me, that's not chaos, but a very intentional choice. Now, chirality is a bit of an abstract concept for those uninitiated, but if you want to learn more, you should check out this video, Chirality, the mysterious molecular symmetry that rules life. In short, the deeper I've gone into biochemistry, the less random life appears. And it's not because I wanted that outcome. It's just truly what the data shows. Order, restraint, measurements. And all of this is happening in a universe that is mathematically trending towards chaos. But it doesn't really shake my faith at all. In fact, it deepens my reverence. I think this shows us that God is just the ultimate designer and creator, and really helps us get a glimpse into the languages he speaks and learning to understand him. Thank you so much for tuning in. I think some of these topics I could talk about for 15, 20 minutes just by themselves. So we'll certainly get back and do more deeper science discussions in the future. But today, I just wanted to give you guys kind of an overview, give you some things to search out for yourself. And thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to get back to the lit side, the literature side of things in the next couple of videos. But it's been so much fun doing this with you guys. And I hope you'll continue to like, comment, share, and we'll catch you on the next one.